And my volume's on. I don't know about your guys.
Hey guys.
What's
Yeah,
up, everybody?
yeah, you're
Hello.
on there. All right, sweet.
Hello.
What's going on, everybody?
Not much. Let's, I guess, give it a second, make sure our audio's okay in the chat and all that.
Let's make sure our audio's okay. What was that noise?
That was me. I'm sorry.
What was that noise?
I think,
Oh,
think we're good.
huh?
So, where's Renee tonight? I thought he was gonna join us.
Uh,
Hunting meese.
from what from what I gathered, he said that he made other plans that were more important than this podcast, such as organizing his sock drawers.
That's reasonable.
Yeah, I think he said he doesn't give a damn about the retro gaming community. They can all go to hell, and he doesn't care if he ever creates another product.
Yeah,
That's
I've
not
heard
what he said, Nick. I have it right here. It's, Bob gets so fat I get sick looking at him. I'm not being a part of that until that fuck does some sit-ups. So, yeah, there we go. Renee, I'm going to try, man. I'm going to have some salad. I already got my standing desk. We'll see what we can do.
We'll make you proud.
I think I turned it the wrong way here.
Well, it's been a while since we wasted everybody's time with this podcast in this format. It's kind of been like a couple months now. So I hope we all remember how to do this. For people who last saw our normal podcast, in 2017, last time we did this, we usually go around and talk about something we're working on or something that's interesting. So Steve's got some cool stuff. Voultar, you are just one big blur. You turn that crap off. Looks terrible.
Somebody said in the chat that they liked it.
Clean your glasses. It's not as good as you think.
I think he liked it when you were fully blurred.
Oh, Jesus. Okay, do you really want me to turn it off?
Nah, you can leave it. I think it was when you waved your hands in front of your face. It just blurred the whole thing.
Well, there's a good little video slice there of me doing something very inappropriate. I hope that people take that and meme it. But at any rate, I turned it off.
I'm sure that'll end up in another one of my videos. Don't worry.
Yeah, that video sucks,
iCasho
Bob.
will probably turn it into a GIF or something later.
Oh, Marion, you bastard.
Oh, where the hell does Steve keep going?
I don't know. I'll go first while he's while he's out.
Bob, what have you been working on?
I've been working on so much since the last one of these. I don't even know where to start. Definitely. I guess the thing that I was doing yesterday is probably relevant. Is I'm finally getting a CDX. I had one, but one of my friends broke it and then blamed it on the power cable. So I'm buying another one, and I was wondering, since I still had the CDX power supply, it's a rare console. So do I get one of like the triads and use that one, or do I just replace the capacitor in the one that's in there? And that got me thinking. This was going to be a Renee question, but apparently you can't stand to talk to me, so I'm going to have to ask you gentlemen instead.
Understandable.
What's the general consensus about that? So is it preventive maintenance that everybody should be doing on their power bricks? Should you only mess with the capacitors if you actually have a problem? And is there another thing in there that is worth swapping out? Should I swap out the diode and the resistor just for the hell of it, or is it not even?
Are you talking about like the original AC adapter that came with it? Not like the power
giant
circuitry on the board.
Correct, Nick. I'm sorry. I probably should have been specific. The big ass power wall wart thing.
He's talking about the AC or the DC power filtering capacitor that's coupled to the transformer on a lot of these old wall warts. That's what he's talking about.
Yes.
And I think that's a fantastic thing to do, Bob. I think that's pretty integral. If you have a Model 1 or a Model 2 Genesis adapter, or even a Super Nintendo or a regular Nintendo AC transformer, replacing that big old bulky cap isn't a bad idea at all. It's not a waste of time or money, that's for sure.
And the general rule of, as long as it's the same size and the same pin spacing, which Arrow calls it something different than DigiKey and everything else, but as long as it's the same size, if there's a 16 volt cap in there, might as well throw a 25 volt. Probably won't make the slightest bit of a difference, but what the hell, better to go higher than anything else. Does that still apply to power supplies?
Sure. I mean, in that respect, yeah, I don't see any problem with going with going with a filter cap that has a higher voltage tolerance. That's not going to have that's not going to have any negligible influence on your
Is
no
the
on your
claim here
electronics.
though that by not doing that's what fried the CDX before?
No. That first part was just me being a total wise ass.
Okay.
The power thing is just simply preventative maintenance. So I opened it up and it looks fine, but anybody that's ever recapped a system knows that doesn't necessarily mean the cap's fine. It just means it hasn't leaked out. So I'm just thinking, if there's this console that I'm getting that I'm going to like, that I'm going to spend a lot of money on, it's probably a good idea just to, head this off with the pass, replace the capacitor. Oh, by the way, it's the same size, might as well just get the higher voltage, because why not? And there you go. From there, now I could have 10 more years out of this PSU, if not more.
What wasn't your initial question though? Replacing the cap and the diodes? Or
So there, yeah, I had a
you
couple
had a
of
minimum. Well, what's
I had
the
a
minimum
couple of
you should
questions
do?
within that question. So is it just the cap that you were? So we've already determined, yes, it's a good thing. I'll probably make a project of it and just replace all the caps and all of my wall warts next week. But while I'm in there, is there anything else that should be replaced, or is anything else kind of a waste of time, like replacing the resistor that's in there, replacing the?
There shouldn't be a resistor in there. There should be just diodes and the capacitor, right?
I
And the
think there's one
transformer.
diode and one resistor and one capacitor.
Could it possibly be a fuse of some kind then?
Yeah.
Yeah, could be.
I have a more practical question to this whole thing. Is I know, Steve, you've cracked open a ton of these things in the past. Are they? I mean, how are they held together? How is it easy to open these things up and put back together, or are you basically are you going to have to saw this thing open and then not have an easy time putting it back together, and it ends up not being worth it just by a fresh triad or whatever?
They're usually ultrasonically welded shut.
Okay, so they're not easy to crack.
At least.
No, the ones that I've been opening, they're just a couple of screws and it pops right open.
But I'm talking about like a SNES one.
Really?
Yeah, there's no screws on that thing.
Are you
I've
sure?
never opened one.
Yeah,
Are you super sure?
I can go
about
grab one right now if you want.
You've already gotten up 7 or 8 times. What's one more? Go grab it and see.
Excuse me. Maybe he's right.
Because
I
the
can't
Genesis
remember.
ones are just, I just grabbed my little toolkit thing, found the bit that fit, pulled out.
I think he is right. I think he
I have
is
a
right.
Genesis 2 adapter right here.
Which is kind of a shame because
Somewhere.
well,
I know for a fact there was one console Jose was doing that was having weird issues.
The Genesis
it was
2
power supply.
does have 2 screws on it, so
Yeah.
that should be easy to pop.
I'm pretty sure the SNES one. I mean, I think you're right on this.
So the SNES one does have screws, but I could have sworn I had trouble getting this thing apart. There was at least one of them where I could not get the. Maybe it was the Master System one.
Mm.
Yeah, the Master System one has more of a convex shape, if I remember correctly, but it has 2 screws as well.
There was. I mean, all of these do have screws. If they have screws and they pop open, yeah, that's totally fine. But if they have screws and then they just don't come apart.
Now, if anybody's never done it before, where the 2 prongs actually are, that's a tight fit. So you will need to kind of put some muscle into it when you pull that part off, because it's supposed to be a tight fit. But I didn't find that they were glued shut or anything.
Okay. Well, then I guess I was mistaken. I must have just not been able to open the few ones that I tried.
Try going to the gym sometime, Steve.
I'll put that on the agenda.
All right. Well, thank you. That was my question. Now I'm gonna go.
Well,
now I'm gonna make a thing of it. My
I
next.
did grab this because you pointed it out. You said the height, the diameter, and then the spacing of the pins between this and this, right?
And well, let me look that up. What the hell was that? I have it right here because it was called something.
It was a
very
pitch.
weird.
It was pin pitch, I think it was.
Radial pitch.
No, it was called different things on different websites. Terminal pitch on Arrow.
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean, okay.
that was confusing. I have this thing where if I'm pretty hungover, I like to just that's the perfect time for me to do like cap replacements because I just go very slowly and don't rush through it. I did like 2 consoles a couple of weeks ago, so my next hangover Saturday, I'm gonna go through and replace all the caps on all my wall warts.
Right on.
Very good, Bob.
So I'll go next. Kind of something interesting that thanks to Bob we discovered yesterday, I believe it was. And I was actually hoping we'd have more of a resolution to talk about. And I don't yet, which is kind of unusual. This is, as some of you may know, we sell certain products on Amazon. And maybe a month or so ago, we sold out of PlayStation 2 cables. And it's been all, whatever. The page has just been dormant. But what Bob found yesterday was that somebody had basically hijacked our listing. And so the interesting way that this seems to be done is they, since we had no stock, they put up stock of one of our cables, but then created a variant of just cheap, crappy Chinese cables and sold out the one of the true PS2 HD Retrovision cable variant immediately, and then only had the crappy variant left. But now somehow they have control of the listing, so people can go to our Amazon page with the the URL that has our PlayStation 2 cable on it and buy a crappy Chinese cable and leave a review saying it's not what was advertised, because the guy still has kind of control of pictures and text on the listing. So it's all yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's interesting. He removed everything that said HD Retrovision. So like one of the bullet points was HD Retrovision cables are properly engineered for like shielding and whatever. And he removed the HD Retrovision. So there's a lowercase c. The sentence starts with cables are properly engineered. So he kept all that. He replaced the 2 like big pictures and kept like the comparisons of the video waveforms. Yeah, and the audio bleeding. And not only can people leave reviews and screw up our 5-star rating, the whole point of them doing this type of scam is they pick products that have high ratings and mooch off of those to push their crap.
Yeah. So now I have submitted this to Amazon, which they were supposed to get back to me within 12 hours. I actually marked it as high priority for once and left a phone number for them to call, which they have not done. Usually my requests to Amazon support are really stupid. They're like, hey, your system won't let me make one of the letters in our title of our product capital. And then like 4 hours later, it's like, it's done. And now something actually that matters is going down and Amazon is worthless. So that's what I'm working on. I'm going to annoy them again tonight.
Apparently this is common. Sorry, apparently this thing is common. It's they call it ASIN hijacking, because we have an ASIN number, and then he has his own ASIN number, but our URL has our original number, but then if you scroll down it says his, and he was able to merge the 2 together somehow, and it's a common problem on Amazon, and there's tons of seller support threads on it.
So yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
This applies to this, but it's more of a generalization, and that it always really bothered me that big companies pay no attention. And look, I very much am aware of how much it costs to do support. So why not just say, all right, it's $120 an hour for support, per hour, minimum 1 hour, and we'll help you out. You'll get a direct person immediately, and you'll only be charged from the time the call starts. But there have been many times, especially running the website, the YouTube channel, that if you told me it would cost $120 to get YouTube to answer a question, I would have gladly laid that cash out because of shit like this. Anything from like major ways that whatever online thing is being run to your stuff's being stolen like this, and it just makes no sense why the bigger companies wouldn't do something like that, an elite line or something that people could go to. But...
Yeah, one of the things that we are going to do, like we've discussed kind of this concern over the last few months, but we were waiting until we got our new stock of PlayStation and Wii cables, which are now in boxes which have our logo on it, because that's a requirement to sign up with the Amazon brand registry, is to have your logo and such on it, and not just in a shitty plastic bag, as was our standard practice before.
Didn't matter before.
But yeah, so now, I'm going to try a couple of things. I'm going to send them, like, return inventory, rebag them, and label them, and see if we can steal back our own listing. But, so if you're listening, don't buy any of our stuff on Amazon right now.
Yeah.
Whoa, all the windows are resizing at once now. This is awesome.
So good.
All right, go ahead, Steve. You're up.
So something that happened in April was KiCad or KiCad, which was in Chicago here. It was the first conference based on KiCad or KiCad. And yeah, there was some really cool talks there. It was 2 days long. My highlight of the conference was I have always complained that the food at things like this sucks. And the first day they had like crappy Jimmy John's sandwiches and I didn't even eat. Like, it's like, I don't know. Someone else could have a second sandwich. I don't care. And then the next day they're bringing out these foil trays and then they pop the first one up and it's like hummus. And then the next one is like this seasoned chicken and then this tabbouleh salad. I'm like, did they get Middle Eastern food? And I lost it, man. I was like so happy. I got food. I was helping people in line, helping them to pick what they want to eat. I got the hot sauce like a bunch of times. I got like thirds and fourths, and there was still food left. And that was the best part of the conference, was the Middle Eastern food on Saturday.
I've been to ones like that.
But for real, there were some really good talks, and I think
was yours one of them?
No. I did give a talk on spice stuff. But first I wanted to,
which you can view if you go to our Twitter profile. It's posted on there somewhere.
Right, and I went through what Chris already posted. Chris Gamble, he like ran the KiCad event. And I went through what's already posted, and I think there's a few that anybody who's like kind of making stuff, making circuits, making things with, it doesn't even have to be KiCad, but anything. There's some really good talks, and the most important ones were the ones by manufacturers, people who actually make boards, PCBs, and do assembly, and they have really good tips. And so first there's like a manufacturer panel. So if you go to, this is all on the Contextual Electronics YouTube page. So go to their videos. It's Chris Gamble's channel. And so the manufacturer panel, they had like 5 different manufacturers up there. It's talking about different things. There is a guy from Royal Circuits called Mihir Shah. He has a thing called Avoid Respins. That was a good talk. There was Chris Denny, who has a talk called "Your Manufacturer is Stupid. Help Them." These are really good ones. There was one from Easy EDA, who kind of makes footprints. Then they have the top 5 footprint mistakes. That's from Elizabeth Bustamante. She was the CTO of that company. And besides the manufacturer ones, some other ones of note are why auto routers suck, which is a really cool guy. Gave that talk. His name is Craig. I forgot his last name.
That one sounded like it was like the actual math and technical reason, but behind why auto routers do what they do.
That's right. That's he used to work for a company that would do the auto routing for silicon, and they're all like cutting edge stuff in that field. But then like he looks at this like PCB auto routing, and it's like tech from the 90s. So he left that company, started his own company to try to bring that tech to auto routing. And he kind of explains like the history of it and the techniques and everything they used back in the day, and like what can be improved. And really cool. And then another one that's really super interesting, it was one of the keynotes. It was by Dave Vandenbout. It's called Schematics, the Heroine of Electronics Design. And he talks about Skittle, which is a programming language that describes schematics. So it's not a visual representation of schematics. It's a textual representation.
So you write code to connect a resistor to a capacitor.
Right, but imagine you have a big block of stuff and you want to copy that block 20 times. You write a for loop.
Yeah.
So when stuff gets super complicated and repetitive, then you transition from visual being easier to work with to the textual being much easier to work with. It's a very awesome talk. Very good job. And then, like Nick mentioned, I had a thing on Spice where it was weird because I was the only one who had kind of like a live demo. And when I was about to go, I'm like, oh man, I think I'm doing this wrong. Everybody else had like slides. I don't have any slides. And so I did a live demo talking about Spice. And the thing I wanted to briefly mention was at the end, someone asked a question about IBIS models. And IBIS models are input-output buffer specification. Do I have that right? Input-output buffer specification. Information specification. And what that is, so let's say you got like a big IC, like an FPGA. So inside, you don't know what's going on. The manufacturer doesn't want to tell you how the transistor structures are arranged and how everything's connected. But then on the outside, where all the pins are, you have to interface that through your board, through all your interconnects to other ICs. And so Intel developed a standard a long time ago, which is kind of just the outside to inside interface of like a pin, an input or output pin. So you can simulate like transmission line stuff and other like analog phenomenon dealing with interfacing stuff external to ICs. And so you have the output, which is kind of looks like this, and you got some transistors, ESD diodes, and then you got like package parasitics, and then it's pretty much the same thing for an input, except there's no transistors to drive the output, but you got your package parasitics, ESD diodes, and die capacitance and stuff like that. Someone asked me a question about this. I briefly looked at IBIS in the past, and because of that question, I kind of got into it and found this program that you can get IBIS files from any major manufacturer that makes microcontrollers, FPGAs, stuff like that. And then I found this program that takes IBIS models and converts them into SPICE models. And so you could simulate your whole system if you put in the time to, create everything together like I typically do when I'm designing stuff. So it was this really neat program, and I posted it on the KiCad forums. That it's a Java jar file that I hacked up that lets you use it offline because the manufacturer only wanted you to use it online on their website. So I hacked that, posted that up, and it's pretty cool to get a more detailed model of inputs and outputs of unknown ICs. Like you don't know what's going on inside, but you can still know how to simulate certain things to validate special cases and things like that. So I thought that was cool that that question was asked because it kind of, I learned a lot of stuff on my research afterwards.
Cool.
Cool beans.
Will your talks be available publicly?
They should all be on YouTube now. Like I said at the beginning, I retweeted the official posting of Steve's talk, so you could watch that. I think it's like 25 minutes or so.
Yeah, all the talks were under 30 minutes. There was the limit. And
then,
yeah,
Contextual Electronics webpage will have the links to all of them.
Email me those if you remember. I'll watch them, try to figure out what on God's earth you're talking about, and then do a couple paragraphs on it and post them for people.
I mean, I could give you this list that I made. That's
and I've watched Steve's. I think that one would totally be appropriate for sharing. I think people would be interested in that. It's not like insanely high level. The circuits he goes through are pretty basic stuff. It's more about how the tool simulates, and
Well, videos like that don't get a lot of views, but the people that watch them appreciate the living shit out of them. Like our scope videos, they don't get a lot of views, but I get so many thank yous for that.
Speak for yourself, Bob.
Yeah, that happened to me after, because there were a bunch of questions afterward, and I actually missed some talks I wanted to see after mine because I would spend like an hour and a half answering questions afterward.
Right on. All right, Lord.
What do you want? What are we doing? What do you want to know?
What have you been up to?
Oh, it's been really busy here for the past 6 months. I restocked the store, and we've got some new products out there. We've got the interface unit RGB, which was delayed for about 6 months, more than it should have been, but it's out. Super, super good reception of that. People are really enjoying it. They're getting outstanding video quality from their IFU briefcase units. I redesigned the Duo RGB board and made it a little smaller for fun. That's available. People are really enjoying that. The SNES 8 megabits, the SNES Super Stacker, and the NES 8-bitters are all doing beautifully. The conversion adapters that I've designed to create or to convert typically Super Famicom games to English, such as some of the Dragon Quest games, Final Fantasy, Anal Fantasy, whichever one you like.
Can you give the people here like a 2-sentence rundown of the difference between the three?
Well, the NES 8-bitter is designed exclusively for NES. Sorry, it's designed exclusively for Famicom cartridges that you may want to convert to an English language. So, for example, a game like Mother, otherwise known as Earthbound, never came out here in the States. Let's say you have a real copy of that, a red cartridge, a beautiful red cartridge, and you don't want to hack up the real game board by replacing the EEPROM. You can do if you've used the NES 8-bitter, you can do a very simple little benign modification to the totally reversible modification to the game PCB, and you can attach my little adapter, and you can just have a beautiful English translated copy of your NES game or Famicom game. The same goes for the Super Nintendo. Basically, the two different SNES boards, it's a matter of difference. It's size difference. One can support up to 1 megabyte or 8 megabits. The other adapter, the Super Stacker, supports 2 megabytes or 16 megabits. Excuse me, but it's scalable. So if you're making a 32 megabit game, you can take two of them and stack them on top of one another, and there's a memory decoder on there so that it'll map memory from the second 60 megabit module that's on top of the first 60-bit module, and it'll effectively give you 16 or 32 megabits of accessible allocated space to play with. So those have been really, really popular, and
those are all in stock?
Yeah, those are all in stock. They've been in stock, Bob, and Well, the Super Stacker, in fairness, the Super Stacker has been out of stock for just a little bit. They're getting ready to restock
just a little bit.
But the videos, I've watched your tutorials on there. They're really good walkthroughs that step you through like the whole process of taking the cartridge, dumping the ROM, getting the translation patch, doing all the crap you need to do to put it on the board, and then soldering it up. Like you go through the whole thing. So I think that those are like super important tutorial videos to have to make them a successful thing. So
yeah, and I did. I try to make some fairly comprehensive videos on that. Not so much for entertainment, but for documentation. I mean, those videos are really just those videos I made with the intent of them being a utility for all of those, for the NES board and the two SNES boards. But what's remarkable is a lot of people just really enjoyed watching them. I think both of those videos have like over 50 or 60,000 views now, which is pretty remarkable. I never expected that to be so popular. So that was a nice thing. That was a nice surprise. I also redesigned Bordy's NES in-game reset thing. I totally redesigned it. But the problem is that my manufacturer, they didn't properly bake the firmware that I served to them. So I had to send them all back, and they're having to pop the PIC micros off, and they're having to rebake them, the firmware onto them. So as soon as those come back in, I'll have those available too for purchase on the store. If you want to do, first of all, just I should have prefaced this, but the NES IGR, it's designed for the NES RGB kit, which is an RGB modification that you can do to NESs and Famicoms, right? So the NES RGB IGR is a parasitic device that will allow you to switch the palettes. The 3 color palettes that are available, you may switch those with button combinations. And you can also have an in-game reset feature via a button combination too. So those should hopefully be available within the next 2 weeks. I also totally redesigned the SNES RGB board too. That's been totally reworked. So you no longer have to short a jumper or strap a jumper between sort of a low impedance C-Sync drive and a high impedance or a logic level C-Sync drive. C-Sync is now buffered on the SNES RGB into a way that it will accommodate safely a high Z input, a CMOS input, and a low, like 75 ohm, close to that ballpark driven termination. So that's pretty cool.
So how are you accomplishing that, though? Because there isn't an IC on that reading the signal and changing it as needed. Did you just calculate a level of resistors that would make everything fall right in the middle?
Well, I buffered it through the fourth channel of the 7374, and then I just attenuated accordingly so that regardless if you are attenuated accordingly. So, for example, if you have a cable, if you have an SNES C-Sync cable that has a 470 ohm resistor, if you're going to plug that in, that's going to drop the sync to around 480 millivolts. If you have a cable that has a 75 ohm resistor, it'll probably drop the C-Sync level to around 320-ish nominal millivolts. If you have a cable with no resistor, like, oh God, there's no resistor in this cable, and you connect it to a FrameMeister or some sort of other low impedance consumer grade piece of tech, your sync will be slicing at around 400 to 500 millivolts. And if you plug it into something like an arcade monitor or something that has no low load termination, it should sit around a couple of volts. So you'll meet that logic threshold if you're plugging it into a funky capture card that requires a logic level sync. It'll work just fine. Should work just fine.
Short version of that answer is he used Spice because it made his design way faster, simpler, and easier, and better.
That's right. This was modeled in Spice, which is phenomenal. It's a great stimulator. Oh, simulator. So yeah, but other than that, I put out a couple of videos. I did a pretty cool Gradius video just a couple of weeks ago. That's taken off, and that's been quite a success. My YouTube channel just recently, I netted over 60,000 subscribers, 33 uploads later. I'm pretty proud of that. That was a pretty nice thing to see. Very grateful for all my subscribers. Thank you.
How many did you pay for?
That's what zeros look like, huh?
That's what that many zeros look like. Yes. So.
Have we audited that channel yet?
You should, and you should be auditing some Twitter accounts too. Not going to get into that. Bob said I shouldn't because
We don't need to get into that, but we could all just simply state that you could go ahead and audit every one of our accounts, whether it's YouTube or Twitter, and you'll find the normal amount of bots that follows everybody. You can't help those, but
I worked very hard to gain all those porn bots. Okay, Bob. They told me I would have a very nice time, and I followed them back accordingly.
At this point, you own stock in Lubriderm because of all the hard work. But yeah, that's all I'm going to say to that is go right ahead and audit all of our accounts, and then laugh when you continue auditing.
Okay, so anyways, Bob, no one gives a shit about that. All I'm saying is everything is going great, and I'm doing good, and that's really all of the updates I had for. Oh, we're not. Are we getting to the part where I need to, Steve? Do I need to talk about the one thing yet? Or is that later?
Yeah,
okay.
I thought we were gonna go.
Then I'm done.
Twosies. Are we? Are we doing that? We going again?
Yeah.
All right. Bob, your turn again. We're going around the table a second time because we've been so shitty about actually doing this program.
Unprecedented.
Yeah, this is huge. Never done before. Just like the last stream.
Sorry, my computer just freaked out on me. Am I still here?
Yeah.
Of course it did, Bob.
Okay. Sorry. So I guess one of the things I've been working on lately is trying to, take Master Steve's knowledge and apply it to my scope.
The triple bypass.
That as well as a bunch of other shit. But I was running into a weird thing with my scope, which it could have been the broken console I was trying to diagnose. Most likely the problem was me, though. But if anybody saw the video that Steve and I did, where Steve showed how to take one of those SCART to BNC adapters and plug that into a scope using T adapters. And then on the other end of that, you either have to have 75 ohm terminators, or you plug it into a monitor that has those, so that you could read signals and view it on the monitor and have the proper thing. So if you go SCART directly into this setup, I get, let's just say 600 millivolts, just to pick a round number. And then if you get like one of Rachel's console to BNC cables direct, so I plug them directly into the scope with no termination. It goes high, exactly as you'd expect. You add the termination back. The reading is identical to what it was with the SCART to BNC adapter. Then if I take one of the probes that came with the scope, if I contact it directly, it's too high. And if I add a 75 ohm termination, it's too low. It doesn't match up to the other readings. And yes, that matches 1x to 1x, 10x to 10x, all that stuff. Because I've made that mistake before. Why am I getting 700 millivolts on something that should be? No, I definitely checked that. So is it most likely just user error, or has anybody seen these issues where you get different readings with a probe than you do plugging something like directly into the scope?
Well, you know what they say, Bob, like 60% of the time it's user error. The other 40% is Bob error. So
I don't disagree with that whatsoever. I'm just saying there's a lot of people now that have been buying those same exact scopes because of that video and our recommendation, and I'm just wondering, is this
4 people, Bob?
No, it's been quite a lot more.
It's like 5 people. Sorry,
But have you guys ever seen that happen before? Or is it in your setup? Can you plug something directly into a scope, then unplug it and touch a probe to it, and it's the same exact voltage? So it should be, right?
Are you sure you're not triggering between AC coupled and DC coupled or something silly like that?
Before I was dumb enough to ask this on a public podcast in front of a bunch of smart fucks, I did think that. I did. Wait a minute, isn't it? But no, I'm pretty sure I double checked every one of the settings. Is it possible? Because remember, Steve, when we set mine up, one of my probes got all weird. Is it possible that the probes I have are just bad and I should throw them out and buy new ones, or does that ever happen?
Well, Bob, let me ask you this: you have a signal generator lead on your scope. When you're having those troubles, do you ever say, well, let me just put the probe on the signal generator and let me see what this square wave looks like? And it's what is the signal? What is it supposed to output, like 3 volts or something like that? There's a little, on the little...
the test generator?
Yeah, the test generator on there. What is it supposed to be?
I'm not sure.
Okay, so anyways, I mean, what I would do, Bob, is just to make sure you're not crazy and that your equipment's not crazy, and to rule the scope out, is you've got a little test generator tab there on your scope. It looks like a little piece of metal that pokes out.
Right. Yeah.
Just just plug your probe into that and just measure it off real quick. And if it looks normal, you know your scope is okay and your probe is probably okay. There must be something funky in your chain that's putting a load on it somehow or something.
How are you probing?
Yeah, how are you doing it? Anally or?
Where are you? Like, I guess I don't understand exactly how the setup looks like.
Because I can help you.
So, it's been different setups have had this same result, and that's why I'm weird about this. So that's why I asked you the question the other day, Steve, which was pretty much reminding me what we did in the video. So I've touched let's say you have a SCART cable going into an RGB monitor that's got the terminators on it. You pop open the SCART head and you touch it with your probe. That should be everything under load. You're measuring everything under a normal load. It should be the correct reading. It should be the same as if you had put the scope in the chain of that load.
Maybe you have a bad ground there.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay. That's very possible.
Because as long as your video and as long as the node or point in which you're making your measurement, as long as that part or that node is being properly source terminated, you shouldn't have any deviations. It should be the same regardless. So otherwise, I don't know why you would be having that issue unless you're.
Sorry.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Steve, please.
How long of a distance is it? How long of a distance? Oh, we got some frames to use for the preview video. Or the preview thumbnail. How long is the distance between where you're probing and where your termination is?
It's a good question. I mean, it's never more than a couple of feet, but it could be feet at times.
It's a big antenna.
Yeah. Because, I mean, look, I'm completely comfortable with us finding out that I'm just making a stupid mistake. But if I'm making the mistake, other people definitely are going to make it at some point. So it'd just be nice to
I doubt that.
have the answers to this.
I would have to
look at it.
Look at the setup myself.
Yeah.
All right. Next time I have a few moments, I'll run through the whole thing again with 2 separate consoles and see if I could reproduce it. And if not, then I'll just I'll just assume I did something wrong. But I wanted to ask in case it was something that you guys had run across where you're like, oh yeah, like Ash just posted. Are you sure that the probe is at the same 1x or 10x? Yeah, I mean that I've run into that before a bunch of times, and that was a stupid mistake. But that's a great thing to remember to be able to tell people, like, oh yeah, make sure your probe is set right. But I definitely did that. So we'll see. But
how big of a difference is it?
Like 100 millivolts.
Are you doing a manual cursor measurement, or are you doing an auto?
Manual. I don't even really know how to use auto because Steve told me not to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can in a hunch, but
it's the only good advice I've ever given.
Do you think you're getting some? If you don't have a good rigid connection, do you think that 100 millivolt difference could be from distortion or ringing?
It could. The ground is definitely an issue because I've seen that before where I'm like, why does this square wave now look like I'm surfing on it, and then it fixed the ground.
It's possible where you think the thing you think is ground is not really connected or is poorly connected to ground.
Or maybe I'm touching the probe on top of a DIN connector that's got a coating on it that's not properly grounding through or some shit.
That's possible.
DIN connectors on Genesis 1 stuff, the shield is not connected to ground.
Yeah, it wasn't a Genesis 1. Okay. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of factors in here. So, all right, well, I'll go back in and I'll check that. But I just wanted to ask that.
I don't think it's a noise issue. I mean, 100 millivolts, that's a lot of transient to be on the line if that's making that big of a difference. I think you're right. I think it's a grounding. I think it might be a grounding phenomena. Ooh, I'm ready. Ooh. Sorry, are we live?
We are now.
Well, I guess I'm done after that one.
All right. So I'll do a couple of brief ones. First, my hero and composer of all of
Jesus.
the soundtracks of my childhood.
Here we go. Fucking assholes.
Cue
It's
the
all worth
Lubriderm.
it. It's all worth it for this moment.
So
he
jealous.
has no idea who Voultar is, or Voultar's mod shop, or what a mod shop is, but he does highly recommend HD Retrovision cables. So if you would like to go to Yuzo Koshiro's Twitter page and watch a recent video he posted, he is in love with
I was
HD
so happy to see that.
Retrovision, but he doesn't care at all about
Well-
modding.
That's fine. Let me tell you something, you fucking ass goblin. I was so happy to see that. I thought that was the nicest thing.
Yeah, he's super cool, dude. Super nice guy.
Like I was telling Bob, if you listen closely, you can hear his family held hostage in the other room.
It wasn't like the video with Mike Matei and that other guy where they were being held by Nigerian terrorists when they were talking
They just
about
didn't wanna be
the.
there.
It was close.
I mean, yeah, it wasn't that bad, but he seems like, Yuzo Koshiro seems like such a humble, modest, nice person. It's just like, what a friendly looking man, and his English is fantastic.
Yeah.
No, yeah, he's great. I mean, what all that happened really was I had seen him tweeting. He had like pulled out an old Mega Drive that was like in really good condition, was plugging it back in again, and I was like, "Hey man, I got a perfect compliment for that. Would you like me to send it?" And he was like, "Sure, I've got. I can just hook this up with the D terminal adapter, no problem." And then yeah, he followed us and sent him one, and he told me, that he loved it, and I told him, look, don't feel obligated to make a video or anything. I really just wanted to send
That's
it
not
to
true.
you. 'Cause
Did you
Not
tell him
true.
you loved him? You told him you loved him.
That's
I told
not
him
true.
I loved his music. He's Streets
Nick
of
told
Rage,
me this
man.
was Nick told me this was a marketing ploy to advance himself in the Japanese markets. Don't listen to him. I seriously heard him say that the other day.
He's got the tapes.
Yeah,
I've got the
I mean,
tapes.
don't worry, Zach. One day I may introduce you to him. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Oh, may you burn in hell forever, you son of a bitch. I really would want you to. Can you? Anything
yeah.
he wants, he gets from me.
Yeah, maybe you can mod something for him. Anyway, I've been in my spare time, which has been a while since I had any. I've been taking a course in what's called measure theory, which is pretty cool if you're somebody that already knows probability. Measure theory is like the underlying thing behind it. Usually in a probability class, you kind of just start with probability distribution, and you learn how to do calculations on it. But this really is like the necessary rigorous math that what's really going on there, and it's not like it's very difficult course. So you got to be pretty sharp at math to appreciate it. But I mean, if you're familiar with the thing I could relate it to is if you've taken calculus and real analysis. Calculus is like the practical application. Real analysis is what underlies calculus and makes it work. All the theorems and such. It's the same kind of thing with probability and measure theory. So there's a lot of good.
Real analysis is where you go to the office hours every day and still get a D on the test.
Yeah, exactly. That's how it is with measure theory.
Sorry about that, guys. My Skype died. I don't know why, but I'm back.
That's cool.
No one noticed.
No one knows why you're back either.
Well, I'm going to tell Yuzo Koshiro that you're an asshole.
So yeah, that's about it. If you're interested, there are tons of good free classes on YouTube now, which is where I'm taking it. I think it's from University of Waterloo or something. But yeah, of course.
Do you have to have having a broad and thorough understanding of probability theory and how to make those computations? That's a very large prerequisite. You couldn't even follow along with that, could you?
You need to understand like probability, but you don't need to know how to do like the integrals and the computations. This is much more of a theoretical class.
Okay.
But
more of a
it's
conceptual
super valuable to learn and understand, because it gives you a new appreciation for certain things. And I've always wanted to take it. So, yeah, that's about it. How about you, Steve?
I took Intro to Probability, Stat 401, my senior year.
Yep.
And thinking it would be easy, and it kicked my ass.
You had to draw white and red balls without replacement.
No, I had to do the triple integrals, and I couldn't picture things in 3D space.
Yeah.
So another thing I did recently, actually this was on Monday, is I've been talking up these parts that Dialog Semiconductor makes. Is a series of parts called Green Pack, and what they are is they're mixed signal custom ICs. So you got some basic digital building blocks, like digital hardware, and then you have some analog hardware, like comparators and stuff like that, built into this part, and you kind of draw a picture of between all your parts, and you make something custom, and then you send them off to Dialog, and then you can buy a reel of them for like 30 to 50 cents a pop. And so I did like a little class / workshop on Monday. And here's like the chip we used, and here's like a block diagram of everything you have inside this chip that you can use. And you got some analog comparators, you got lookup tables. Renee explained these on a roundtable maybe like a year and a half ago.
Mm-hmm.
But you can implement any type of like logic, like multiplexers and AND gates, OR gates, stuff like that. You got these other like timer blocks. You got 3 oscillators. You got all sorts of stuff, and you got your input and output pins. And so what the software lets you do, it's really nice software. It lets you take these building blocks, put them down, connect them together, and like I said, you could build your own IC. And the thing about these green packs, this is the one we used, and it's on this like dip board, because I got everybody. Actually, Dialog provided free dev kits, 11 of them, one for me, so I could actually teach the class. So this is a dip development platform that they sell. It's like $25. This is that chip that I just showed that had the building blocks, and here's the chip in the middle. And this is kind of what I wanted to show. It's 3 millimeters by 2 millimeters.
Oh, dimensions of my penis.
So it's very tiny.
So is this like a highly scaled down FPGA in some sense?
Pretty much. You don't have the fancy like PLLs and stuff like that. It's easy. Actually, I would say it's even more of a scaled down CPLD with analog stuff inside as well.
Does it have pulse width modulation features?
Some of them do. So there's a big product family, and the nice thing with the software is when you launch the software, like the first thing that pops up is their whole list of parts, and it has a chart of everything that's in the part. There's ones with P-channel MOSFETs. There's ones with 2 VDDs, so you could do level translation inside. There's ones with PWM. There's ones with digital comparators. There's ones with I2C. There's all sorts of different things, and you can. The whole point of these is you consolidate. Usually, some sort of design has a bunch of glue logic, and you got discrete chips. You got like buffers, tri-state buffers, multiplexers, a few 7400 series chips on the board, and you kind of consolidate this into one little tiny. That part's 2x3. The smallest one they have is 1 by 1.2 millimeters. So super tiny. Save a lot of space, and the nice thing is, if you're worried about like reverse engineering and stuff like that, somebody could map out your routes on your 7400 logic series, where it's unknown what goes inside. I mean, somebody could eventually figure it out. I mean, it would just take a lot of time to handle all the cases, but it does prevent like some reverse engineering. And yeah, I mean, it was cool.
To be clear, these things are really meant for like basic
discrete
function
logic
blocks, like accomplish this little processing task, not build a FPGA SNES on one of these things.
Right. Yeah, that is correct. One of the the example project that I was doing at the workshop was a window comparator, and actually Zach gave me the idea for that because he mentioned that it could be useful for something Bob might be working on, which was so a window comparator kind of has like 3 levels. You have a too high, a too low, or in the sweet spots. So you could be adjusting a potentiometer and calibrating like maybe RGB levels or voltage levels, and you're turning this pot and it's red. You turn it, it goes green. Oh, you went too far, it hit the other red, like the too high red. Oh, you turn it back a little green. So, okay, that's calibrated. Move on to the next line.
Do you think that could be used for the triple bypass? Because apparently that's all I've been working on.
Yes, it very well could be.
But
I think he's talking more about arcade boards and stuff
That's
like that.
That's a fucking phenomenal idea, though, honestly. That's
well,
really great.
So just to sort of to kind of elaborate on that, the idea was if you have an arcade board and you have a way of generating a color bar screen, or just if you can get peak luma to generate off your arcade board, you could use this windowed comparator and you could use it to dial in video perfectly to spec by just using 3 LEDs. Imagine like you've got a Christmas tree. You've got a red LED in the bottom. You've got a green LED that sits in the middle, and you've got a red LED again on the top. So when you're turning that knob, if you're too low, that red LED at the bottom is going to blink. You're too low, you're too low, you're too low. If you go just a tad bit too high, the red LED at the very top is going to start pulsing. But when you get it right the sweet spot, right where it needs to be in life, that green LED that sits in the middle, not above and below, but in the middle, that LED starts to pulse, and you know that you've got at least the voltage, or the amplitude set perfectly for at least that channel, and then you can move on. You don't have to have a scope. You don't have to have any other sort of hardware to do that. It's integrated either on the supergun or on your interface.
You know what's funny, too, is I was just messing with some stuff today, and I thought that the thing I was testing was off, so I'm double-checking, and then I realized, let me switch arcade boards. And then I went back, and my UMK3 board is like 40 millivolts dimmer on green than it is on red and blue. It's like, oh shit, it was the board the whole time. So.
That's why just something else, Bob. A lot of people, and it's understandably so, it makes sense, but it's not always the best thing to do. A lot of people use those triple gang potentiometers, so that you sweep red, green, and blue all at the same in concert with one another. The problem is
stuff like this.
Green might have a different swing than red. It might just inherently output a little lower. So while green and blue might be 700 millivolts terminated, red or the odd color could be like 560, 580. I've seen that time and time again. So it's just a nice little diagnostic tool that could be implemented in hardware, just as long as you have your voltage reference, which would be 700 millivolts or 1.4 volts. But anyways,
they give you they have the built-in reference, and then you could select your analog comparator thresholds in 32 millivolt steps. So they give you this big list. So it's all built in. You just click, oh, I want this one.
So you don't even have to. You don't even have to provide a voltage reference.
It has a built-in reference. You could apply an external reference too, but
that's wonderful.
It's really cool. Like they pre-calculate everything for you, so you just like click a box. Like the lookup table, you drag the lookup table. It says 2-bit LUT. You double-click on it. You select AND gate, hit apply, and it turns into an AND gate on the interface.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's very cool. So maybe that could be a cool application in the arcade scene, Bob. It was just an idea I had back in the
when I first mentioned it. Yeah, when I first mentioned it, Zach's like, oh, maybe this might be a good idea.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk to you guys on that offline. Sorry for running out. It sounded like cannon fire. So I just ran outside to make sure. Gunfire's fine. I grew up around that. It's too high up to get hit with a ricochet, but fucking... that was like, wait a minute. That's either weird thunder, fireworks, cannon fire, or a tractor trailer just rolled over down the street. But it's got to be fireworks.
New York, so probably all of them.
Whatever it is, it's still happening. So hopefully the noise won't go through the mic. My bad.
It clearly is. Okay, let's move
All
on.
right, Zach, tell us about the most important project that has ever graced humanity.
Okay,
MK2000 fix.
So
The Neo Geo.
So
Oh, you haven't gotten to those yet?
on the more
it's only been 3 years.
On to more 4 years. It's on to more important things. On to more important things. I've been working on something in the background, and this isn't for me, and this isn't something for sale. This is something for everybody. I've been working on some server stuff. Steve's been working on it too with me. We would like to open, serve, and host a couple of dedicated servers for some games that are very good, but maybe aren't so popular anymore. Steve, would you like to talk about what you've been doing on this on the Jizz Trap? That's what we're calling the server box.
Oh well, I mean, people saw it last time on the last podcast where we were playing Spent Co-op. That was on the server that you got up and running.
So here's the deal. You can go to gameservers.com and you can go to a lot of these places and you can rent exclusively and specifically game servers for specific games. But it can get pretty expensive, like up to $1.99, $2 a player slot. If you want to host a 32 or 64 player server, well, I mean, 2 times 64, you're going to be paying $128,000, $160,000 a month just to play a game, one game. So I decided to rent a virtual server from a company, but there's virtually no support, so you have to do everything via hand job. And it's a Linux box, and you're very limited on really what you can do as far as coordinating with support to load things for you. So it took me a little while, but I hacked in a pretty nice copy of Debian that's running on this Linux box. And right now we have Battlefield 2142 loaded up, ready to go. We've got a few little kinks left to work out from a dedicated server standpoint, but we've got 2142 loaded up. We've got First Strike, which is a Star Wars mod, loaded up. It's going to be phenomenal. And we've got Sven Co-op, which is a phenomenal co-op game based on Half-Life, loaded up. And we've got a Doom server. The idea, though, is to really push 2142. We would like to start a Battlefield 2142 playing community. If you never played it back in the day, it's one of the greatest games of all time. Steve has actually even worked on a little compilation package that will help you get out the door and ready to go without any headache or fuss. Maybe he can talk about that in a second, as long as he doesn't monopolize my time. But at any rate, I hope we have some Battlefield 2142 fans, and I hope you guys would be interested in playing with us. Like, we would try to schedule it weekly. Like, we would have super big epic matches of Battlefield 2142. I'd love to hear thoughts in the community about that. In our little we've got 120 people watching now, so if anyone's interested in that, please talk about it in chat. Steve, is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, like the whole thing that makes this possible is so EA GameSpy used to run all these old servers, and they shut down, was it in 2015 or 2016?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so there's actually this developer that came out of nowhere, and he created something called OpenSpy. And so he's I guess emulating all the stuff that GameSpy did, and he's doing it across multiple platforms. He originally did it for Tony Hawk games, and then other people wanted to use the GameSpy system or the OpenSpy system for their old GameSpy supported games. And so he was adding also. So if there's like even PS2 games that are still running online, it's because it's running on OpenSpy right now. This guy put in a ton of work to
keep these games alive.
Keeps these games alive, and he doesn't really have a website right now because he doesn't have time to manage it, he was telling me. And he's kind of like burnt out from working on this since like 2014. So that's what's allowing the 2142 to work. And I was helping him troubleshoot some stuff, and he fixed a few bugs on the 2142 side. But that's it really comes down to, like, he made it simple such that in most cases you use a hex editor and edit the exe file for either your game or your server, and wherever it says gamespy.com, you change it to openspy.org, and it's the same amount of characters, so you don't have to do any address shifting or anything like that. It's pretty neat, and I hope he gets the website up and running, because there's not really a way to, like, like a donate or a support thing. So I hope he gets that up and running, because I don't want people to take for granted that he's able to resurrect these old games, allow you to play all these old games online.
That's right. That's right. So I don't know, as far as the timeline on that goes, in terms of when the server will be live and polished and ready to play, that's really up to Steve and his willingness to work on it.
Well, there's some, like, changes that there's some minor changes to OpenSpy. There's also the people who facilitated getting OpenSpy or 2142 support on OpenSpy is called 2142 Reclamation. If you type in Battlefield 2142, like in Google, it's probably the first link, and it has instructions on how to get your 2142 up and running. And so it's a bunch of guys been playing since the game came out, and they still want to play. They still love the game, and so they are doing everything they can to get this up and running. So
right.
They have this, like, launcher software that is getting updated as well. So that kind of, like, helps you get through the process easier, gets you patched up and ready to go. And so I kind of want to wait for those to settle down before you're doing all sorts of workarounds and stuff like that.
Yeah, so maybe another 2 weeks.
6 weeks?
Where have I heard 2? No, did I say 2? I meant to say 6. 6 weeks. Bob, do you have any idea what we're talking about?
Definitely the Neo Geo project.
Close,
if you use the word months, I would be saying the Dreamcast HD Rectilivision cable, but yeah.
Months? You mean years? Oh, do we have an update on that, gentlemen?
Nope. And now we're going to move on to group topics.
Okay.
What are our group topics?
All right, hold on. I got to see what this is. I'll be back in a minute.
Jesus, Bob.
Well, there were a couple topics that Bob listed. There's one from a long time ago that we were supposed to talk about, but I don't think we ever did.
Is that the aspect ratios?
Yeah, that's the aspect ratios. Man, that's so complicated. I don't know if I want to get into that.
Yeah,
we can.
And I definitely want to cover. Well, I think Bob's going to war.
Does he have out the chain mail? What's going on?
Bob had some group topic based on lag of some kind as well. So it's either the aspect ratios or lag.
Oh, he put on shorts.
Or we could just, like, answer a shit ton of questions.
I'd say we dedicate maybe 40% of the time doing a group top topic, and the other 60% kind of address the audience, because I don't think we've been doing a good job of that.
Yeah.
So, real quick, I gotta just explain why I just bolted in the middle of a sentence.
Nice.
There was fireworks on the west side, right on the West Side Highway, and you could kind of sort of see them, but at the same exact time, there was like 5 or 6 fire trucks down the street. So I'm hearing the explosions, and I'm seeing all of the lights reflect around me. I'm like, this is definitely bad. This is definitely bad. So it was 2 things. It wasn't one. I'm not just paranoid and crazy. There really was melee outside just now, but I'm back and it's safe, I think. But whatever.
Okay, Bob. No one gives a shit.
I kind of felt like me throwing my headphones down, grabbing my phone, and running out the door is probably worth an explanation, boring or not.
I assumed it was some kind of Cloverfield incident.
I think it would have been funnier if you ran back, like opened the drawer and grabbed your shotgun and ran back out.
I don't own one. Yeah.
Sorry, your Walther PPQ.
Yeah, I think I got a knife somewhere. That's about it, though.
It's PPK. All right.
So did we pick a group topic?
Oh, Jesus.
Not yet. What did you want to talk about? Did you want to complain
Lag.
about
I've really been wanting to
lag?
talk about lag for a while now.
Okay.
I mean, maybe this is going to be an easy one, but I'd rather run it through all of you before we figured it out. But so you see things like, I'm going to use the Mister as an example because it's one device that has all of these things. But you could calculate the lowest possible input lag in certain scenarios down to, like, let's just say 6 milliseconds, and then the lag added to the HDMI output. So if you have dual outputs from analog and HDMI, the HDMI is 4 to 6 milliseconds slower. So what does that equate to in real world? Is that 12 milliseconds? Is that nothing? I mean, is that, because obviously the way a CRT would work is, starts out at 0 lag. By the time you get to the bottom right corner, it's 16.5 milliseconds. So I guess when it comes to a frame of lag and above, I have a very solid grasp on that, and I think I do an all right job explaining it. But once you start to get to sub 1 frame of lag, I'm still not quite sure how that affects real world performance. And even with things like I have a monitor that's got 2 milliseconds of lag on the top, 2.5 in the middle, and 3 on the bottom. How is that different than a CRT in a real world scenario?
So I think there are two things really that come to mind. Then a lot of people either forget about this or they fail to understand the relationship differences. We're talking about input latency. We're talking about input lag. What is input lag? Input lag is the time interval between you pushing a button on your controller and the screen responding with the appropriate action. Mm-hmm. Now, that's great to test, and that's very important to quantify because input lag sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Another very important key element to this I don't understand why this is overlooked and no one talks about it, but in my opinion, it's just as important. Pixel response time. Pixel response time, to me, is just as integral as input latency, because just because the screen is reacting very fast to your button presses, that doesn't mean a bit of difference if the screen has very poor pixel refresh.
Exactly like in that ZSWorks monitor thing where I used a shitty panel to install it, so his kit was working fine, but it's still a shit panel. So It still has shit pixel response time.
Right. So, I mean, they go hand in hand, and I feel like pixel response time and pixel refresh takes a backseat to input latency. And I can understand why, because input lag is something that's very easily understood because it's easy to quantify. The reason it's easy to quantify is because it's very simple. If you push a button and Mario jumps 3 seconds later, this sucks. I'm never playing retro games ever again. It's just not worth the hassle.
Maybe you should just play the fucking game.
Well, maybe. I played the fucking game. Okay? Shut up, Nick. But pixel reset, and that's also the CRT thing. Well, it's just as good as a CRT. The input latency is only 8 milliseconds on this display. It's very close to a CRT. Well, okay, half a frame is not really close to a CRT, but I'll grant you. Let's say that for an average person, with
compared to choices that we've had over the years.
Sure. Yes, we'll put it on the CRT tier. But what good is that input? What good is that fast input response if you've got really shitty, slow pixel response and pixel refresh? It's not going to look like a CRT. It's going to look like a blurry, fucked up mess. And if the pixel response time is so bad, in fact, that it's not able to keep up with your button presses, and there's a discrepancy between the screen it's reacting fast, but it's not drawing fast enough.
Right.
That's a big problem.
So that's an issue where, and feel free to point and laugh all you want, but there are certain things I'm very sensitive to and certain things I'm not. Extremes always makes fun of me because I don't really see chroma shift anything ever, but stuff like blurry pixel response time, So even if technically speaking you have a 0 lag monitor, if I'm running in Super Mario World and all of the background's blurred and I go to make a jump and Mario's looking blurry around the jump, that messes with me. I could see that. It kind of messes with how I want to, how you change your attack. And I'm by no means a great gamer. I mean, most of the friends I have that are professional gamers would wipe the floor with me drunk and wasted if I was sober, but I still can see it, and it still bothers me during the experience, which even playing Mario World in RF on a CRT, I've never had that complaint before. I've never had to retime a jump because RF was too blurry. And that's just something I'm running into a lot with all flat panel gaming, and it's just I'm trying to understand more what happens below 1 frame of lag and then what else is there. So I'm glad you brought up the blur. I'm really glad you did, but I still want to get the whole picture. So is it really just a matter of doing the LED test that we talked about? And yes, it's software and you got to do it like 100 times and average it out. But is understanding latency both a matter of pixel blur and just being able to calculate from the button pushed to movement on screen? I'm talking sub 1 millisecond lag. Everything else, yes, I've clearly done this for 7 years now, but because here's an example that you guys all tease me about, but it's true in that what if a monitor has on average 16.9 milliseconds lag or 15 milliseconds of lag? Does that technically mean that the one at 15 milliseconds is going to fall right in that exact timing where you might be able to get your button push across before that 1 full frame is passed?
So your problem kind of reduces down into how we transmit video. We transmit video as a one-dimensional signal, and we reconstruct it into a two-dimensional space.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why it's a very hard concept to visualize, because you're taking temporal data, which is time-based data, in the 1D realm, and you're mapping it into a 2D square object, and that is moving, whereas when we look at it as a 2D object, we don't really, it's not easy to perceive the movement in the 1D space. We tend to just perceive the movement in between two sets of 2D spaces. So that's why you're having a difficult time imagining it. I'm having a difficult time conceptualizing it too. It's you're trying to say, like, because line 1 gets delayed like 3 lines, how does that affect me jumping?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Exactly, yeah.
Whereas if frame 1 gets delayed to frame 2, it's obvious how that affects my jumping.
Right.
So
that's exactly what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
I just wanted to frame like the question in that what it reduces down to in the physics.
I think I have a pretty good way of doing this. That's relative. I mean, that's a relative way. Imagine, okay, let's say you said that the example was there was a discrepancy of what, 0.3 milliseconds? Did you say 16.1 and 15.8 or something?
Pick any number just above 1 frame and just below a frame.
Okay, so let's say that you have a display that has a latency, input latency. It's very important you say input latency.
Input latency.
Yeah. Of 17 milliseconds. Mm-hmm. Let's say that you have another display that has that has a latency, input latency of 16.7 milliseconds. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So what is the discrepancy between the two of them?
So in my visualization of this,
no, I just need a number. What's the difference between them?
Oh, say that again. I don't.
17 and 16.7 milliseconds, right?
Oh, right. Yeah. Of course. I'm sorry. I thought you were using different examples.
No. Well, my question is, what is the difference? What is the difference in latency between them?
Wouldn't it be 0.3 milliseconds?
Exactly. Precisely. So 0.3 milliseconds. How can we conceptualize that? Because Steve has a hard time, you have a hard time, even I have a hard time. 0.3 milliseconds. It takes 64 microseconds. That's 64 microseconds on a CRT to draw from the left side to the right side. Then it retraces H blank, V blank, and it's or H blanks, and it sets up for a new line. 64 milliseconds. Now imagine how many, if it's 64 microseconds to draw one raster line, how many raster lines can you fit, does it take for 0.3 milliseconds?
Right, but so I see.
No. But just answer the question, Steve. How many raster lines can you fit if you're drawing at CRT speeds into 0.3 milliseconds?
It's around
roughly.
5. It's
okay.
Around 5.
Okay. 5 scan lines on your TV. Yeah. 5 scan lines. Okay. Now that you know that, we can quantify that. We have a visualization of what that difference is. 0.3 milliseconds is roughly equivalent to 5 scan lines. If I wrote a piece of software on my Super Nintendo and I said, Bob, we're going to do an input lag test. The objective for you is to press the button. You remember those golf games where the bar fills up and you have to get it right in the green spot for it to slice perfectly?
Yeah.
Imagine that being the test. And Bob, your window is 5 scan lines. I'm going to give you 10 attempts. You're going to have to be able to see the screen draw, and you're going to have to be able to hopefully press that button right within that 5 scan line, 0.3 millisecond window. If I gave you 10 attempts, other than just coincidentally getting it, how many times do you think you'd get that?
So that's a trick question, because that would depend how often does the game pull. Does it pull per scan line, or does it pull once per frame like your average 16-bit game?
Polling infinitely,
let's assume that it's polling faster than your screen is drawing each line.
So I would probably take a bunch of tries and then eventually get it perfect, because if it's the same every single time, a human could just eventually just program their timing to do it. The problem that I'm talking about, and I'm glad you did explain that, but so let's say something buffers once a frame. So the SNES, on average, pulls the controller once every 16.5 milliseconds. So that's the problem that I have, is that when you have input latency for something like any kind of controller adapter, and then, of course, input latency on the screen, and you're getting pulled once every millisecond, in my very subjective testing, it's all over the place. It's never the same place twice. And if it is, it's not consistent enough. And that's the type of shit that drives me crazy. Because if you start to get really good at a game and you have hours into it, variability is what would always screw any gamer up. Regardless if you're a pro or just a casual idiot like me that really enjoys doing it when I rarely have the free moment too. So that's or would you really just get lucky if you have a display with 5 milliseconds of lag and a controller input adapter with 5 milliseconds of lag? So that's 10. How often are you going to hit it within the same exact time that it pulls the controller port?
What is it? That's 18 scan lines. I don't think that you're going to have any. I don't think even, let's say even your offset. Let's say that you know that this game only polls once every 16.6 milliseconds. So there's already a frame delay. You've already got a frame delay even on a lagless CRT. And let's say, oh shit, I've already got a frame delay, but fuck me in my ass. I'm going to do this on an LCD or an LED that's got 5 milliseconds of latency. What does that mean? Not only do I have a frame of lag inherent to the game that's only going to pull a frame at a time, but I've got an additional 18 scan lines that I have to account for. Jesus Christ, this is going to fuck my timing all up. I don't think it's going to do anything.
But if we're talking about an LCD here, there's no scan lines, right?
Yeah, I was gonna bring.
It reads in all of the data and then serves it at one time.
Like the LCD has like these row drivers.
That's true.
So it has a frame buffer, and then doesn't it push all the rows and shift registers it across all the columns or something like that?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So even though the analog video comes in like 1D, you have like a pseudo 2D way to display it on the LCD. So that adds another kind of complexity to the mix, I think, depending on how the LCD is driven.
So I guess a way dumber way to phrase this is if you have let's just say you have two of the most perfect LCD panels on the planet, right? There's no motion blur, they're wonderful, and one of them has average 3 milliseconds lag, and the other one miraculously has 0. Would you ever really be able to notice a difference in consistent gameplay, or would it just be?
No way. I don't think so. I don't think the human reflexes and response would even be able to quantify that. I can watch a CRT all day long. There's no way I could move my eyes fast enough to even capture even the line of the raster going down. You're not fast enough. I don't think humans. I think when you get to about maybe 9 milliseconds, maybe 10 milliseconds, sure. But anything sub 5 milliseconds, I just don't think 95% of the population would ever be able to differentiate between that and
So on a CRT, I wholeheartedly agree with you. But in the scenario in which, if it's potential that 3 milliseconds could interfere with that one frame that's being buffered.
Yeah, pushes you over into the next frame is what you're getting at.
It's exactly what I'm getting at. Yeah. Is that even a real thing, or is that just something I'm envisioning that doesn't happen?
Okay, so like let's say this will take me 10 seconds to explain this, but let's say I think I understand what you're saying now. Maybe I didn't understand this before. Oh shit, this game is polling the controller every 16.6 milliseconds. Damn, but you know what? Because we're playing on an LCD, we've got an extra 5 milliseconds of latency. So even though it's just 5 milliseconds of additional latency, the game doesn't care. We're going to have to wait another 15, 14, 13, 12, 11. We'll have to wait another 11 milliseconds because it's going to have to draw an entire second frame before the NES is going to ask the controller at register 4016. I don't know why I know that about the NES, but hey, 4016, you have a value in there. We're looking for this, this, or this. I see your point now, and yes, that could be a problem.
All right, so that's exactly why I wanted to ask all of you the question, because it's just, and this is going to sound off topic, I swear it's not, but I've always loved taking pictures of lightning. I don't know why. And when I started getting into the super slow-mo, I get the 960 frame per second thing, I have my little method of taking the pictures, and I'll watch a lightning strike and be like, oh, that's awesome. And as I'm playing it back in super slow motion, I'm remembering the path that the lightning took, even though it happened less than a second. And it made me think of this in your brain. And even though you're not able to react in 1 millisecond of time, your brain is processing the info.
May I ask you a question, Bob?
Yeah, of course.
And this is something that you, I think, are pretty informed because you hang around these guys a lot.
Mm-hmm.
How do these guys survive in the arcade tournament arena when they're playing like Street Fighter 4 and those newer fighters on like PS3s and stuff like that, or whatever systems they're playing on, where you've got Bluetooth controllers coupled with a game that's probably already generating so many frames of lag, coupled with an LCD? I mean, people who play the new fighters, do they have a lot to go through in terms of like I can play it on this TV. Yeah, I can play it on my TV at home, but if I'm going to compete, they use these different monitors, and these monitors are a lot faster, and I'm going to get fucked because my timing's totally off. Is that an issue?
Yeah, so I'm going to say something a little controversial, but here's the truth and the experience that I have, and I'm lucky enough to have a lot of pro gamer friends. But so yeah, when you're talking about the newer Street Fighters, the newer Mortal Kombats, everybody's aware. So they're using whatever controller is going to give them the least amount of latency. Sometimes, believe it or not, depending on the console, sticking with wireless is better. Sometimes using the USB port's better. They always go above and beyond to spend, especially at the tournament level, they'll spend any amount of money on getting the zero lag solution because they want it to be about the player. They don't want it to be about who had the bum controller, who was sitting in front of the shit monitor. The only people that consistently blame the hardware is the Smash community. That's the same group of people that once scoffed. Like, oh, what do you do? Retro RGB. RGB? Ugh, RGB adds lag. Why would you use that? I use composite. I swear by
I
the
don't
way.
believe that.
I've heard that multiple times. My friends have heard that multiple times.
I believe it.
So that's the only community that I've seen that consistently blames the hardware. One of them told me the M cable that was two milliseconds of lag. So this is too much. It's going to affect my Smash game. Maybe based on our conversation, maybe, but you're blaming the hardware, man. Get better at Smash.
I thought Adam Korlick said that the M cable was even faster than a regular HDMI cable.
That's exactly what he said. Maybe you want to throw up. Maybe you want to delete my YouTube account and just go back to writing again. But
see, yeah, I mean, I don't want to go off on a tangent, but do you know how much damage nonsensical statements like that make when it comes to my goddamn email inbox on a Monday morning? Yeah, I'm not being a cunt about that.
He in his video said that the DC HDMI wasn't compatible with the whole library, so you had to use different cables for different games. No, you fucking moron! It's the only thing that's compatible with every game on the Dreamcast library. Have you not watched any other videos or read the manual or done like?
Go into the menu. Go into the menu.
I have not watched this video where this claim is made. But I just want to throw this out there, that is it possible that what was going on is that you plug, say, a 480p source through an HDMI cable to TV, and TV sucks at upscaling 480p, but it's a 1080p TV, so it's got to display it at 1080, right? Then you plug in M cable, which does the upscaling for you, and M cable is faster than TV at upscaling.
It depends on the source.
I mean, this might not have been what happened. I'm just throwing this out there as one possibility for...
No, but I'm glad that you brought that up, because if you look at the chart and how it does the scaling and everything else, I did try it, all of the different resolutions and everything. That's a very good point, but all of the displays that I've seen and I've tested with the Time Sleuth, there isn't a measurable difference between 480p, 720p, 1080p. It's only an interlaced, and the M cable just passes interlaced. It doesn't touch it at all.
Can I ask another question?
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
This is just since we're talking about the M cable, I'm sorry if this has already been asked or discussed, but I just had a weird thought. Has anyone ever tried to couple or pair the M cable to an OSSC on a troublesome television like mine with like an NES or a SNES that has a funky bad line, especially when you line triple it, to see if it corrects, or not corrects, but that it
helps compatibility.
If it aids in compatibility. I'm just wondering if anyone's ever taken the M cable.
That's a great fucking question. I think I still have it here. Let me test it, because cousin Scott has my old plasma that had bad compatibility issues with the OSSC. It's a great question. That's why you're Lord Voultar and not just underling, Papa Smurf Voultar.
Yeah, take that, Adam Korlick.
Huh.
All right, Bob. Go test that now, and the adults here will finish up the rest of the show.
Is it question time?
Yeah, let's hit some questions. Right shoulder. Oh, first, before we do that, I should thank. I did see a super chat come through. Hot Mess Express super chatted us and said, "Mike, who cheese Harry?" ? I don't know what that means, but thank you, appreciate it. Let's see, questions now. The right shoulder button on my 8-bit DOE 2.4G controller is mapped to the C button. What's the deal with that? I keep hitting it by mistake and it's messing up my gameplay. Does anyone else have this problem? I've updated.
Maybe look to the chat. Maybe someone in chat can help you with that. I don't own any of those controllers, but
so I have one of those controllers, and yeah, I mean, my controllers, it's mapped that same way, and I don't mind it because growing up I had a shitty Genesis third-party cable that was basically a SNES cable, and that's how I played Sega Genesis, and I always liked having C on the shoulder for fighting games, specifically. But I don't know if you can disable that or not. Maybe somebody in the chat knows.
Is the 8-bit DOE a good controller, Nick? With the RF4? I know that's all in the same spectrum, people. I'm talking about an RF 2.4 controller.
Yeah, I really like it. It's got a nice weight to it, a good feel. I think the Cricks, I think is a little better.
Joys, baby. This thing's awesome.
But
I actually
given the
made a wise
price,
guess. I haven't used the 8-bit DOE one, so.
yeah, I mean, given the fact that you can get the 2.4 8-bit DOE one for $25 with the receiver, I would tell people to get that. But I have both, and given the choice, I would choose the Joys. I just like the feel of it better. But yeah, it's nice.
So somebody wouldn't be going wrong, or they would be steered.
No.
They wouldn't be steered in the wrong direction if they got the 8-bit DOE. That's a fine controller to buy.
Yeah, it's a fine controller to buy. Well worth the $25 for sure.
Okay.
I don't know the answer to the question. Can you
Remap it or turn it off?
I have not messed with that. I assume so, but I don't know for sure. And I just saw in the chat someone asked, why no 2.4 SNES controller? I have no idea the answer to that question.
You know, that and an SNES equivalent. That's killing me, guys. I'd love to see an RF 2.4 SNES and an NES. I know that.
No, the retro USB one's awesome.
I know the retro USB one, but the form factor sucks, man. No offense.
No, that's it. Greg solved that for us over a year ago. The 3D printed shell. Have you seen it yet? I can grab it. 2 seconds.
No, I'll
be right back.
This is for the SNES or the NES? The
The retro is the NES controller.
Oh yeah, I have that thing, the clicky one.
Do you like it?
I've been using it for Tetris.
Oh shit. Okay, that's pretty cool.
So
I like
Greg,
that.
Greg redid this. You could print it. You know, obviously depending on the quality of your printer is how good it's going to come out. It's just a hair thicker than your average NES controller. I should have grabbed one of those too, but it's just a bit thicker. But I mean, you still have the clicky, like you could hear it.
Yeah, I'm surprised, like, because I don't really care about the shape. I'm fine with the shape of it. It's the clickiness that sometimes
Doesn't bother me at all in this form factor. It's so weird. It like, you know, I know you're not doing Hadoukens on a NES, but like that same motion, having to go back and forth, it feels totally fine in this form factor.
In Brazil.
I know, yeah. I've played
But
that.
no, but wait a minute. So wait a minute. I'm confused. When you say clicky, do you mean that these controllers don't have carbon pads and
do not.
membranes, that they have micro switches?
Yes.
Oh, and you don't like that?
For whatever crazy reason, out of the box, I didn't like it. But when I put it in this case, everything just feels like a noisy NES controller. And the noise never bothers me at all. And there's no perceptible lag. I got to measure this one too, but I'd be willing to bet it's the same as the Joys and the same as the 8-bit DOE 2.4. It's probably 2 to 4 milliseconds, you know.
Thank you, Colin.
Yeah.
That's very nice of you. Or Greg, excuse me.
Greg is the fucking man. Love Greg.
So you know, but the thing about controllers and controllers that are kind of iffy, when they're not really iffy, I've heard people over the years, especially a few years ago, use that as an excuse when they couldn't pull off a certain maneuver in Symphony of the Night, and they would have to hand the controller to me when I was half asleep so I could do. What was it? Was it Dark Metamorphosis? I can't remember. But it's
nobody.
It's where you regain health.
Visits you, Voultar. Nobody.
He's like, I can't do. He's like, here. I'm like, no. He's like, Dark Metamorphosis.
We were playing Symphony of the Night co-op, man.
So, anyways, I hate to get off on a tangent, but there you go. Anyways, cool. Next question.
From the Sven co-op stream, dude, where did you get that arcade board housing, Bob? That is sick looking. I've been looking for something exactly like that for ages. I don't remember what that's referring to.
Is that the one that was all fucked up, Bob? That was like, you had to fix the standoffs and shit? That you paid a lot of money for? That was, the acrylic that was cut and etched out?
This one that happens to be right next to me?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't really want to give... I don't know if I should give the name of it.
Yeah, you had to do a lot of work to that just to make that even better.
Well, let's be honest. John from Tasty Chicken did all the work while I stood there and went,
Bullshit though for how much you paid for that anyone had to do anything to that.
You're totally right. Let me get the exact name if anybody in the chat remembers it. But
while you do that, I would like to thank Zach Walensky for donating. He didn't leave any comment, and also to Cosmic Katamari, and he says to use Brasso for a lag-free gaming experience.
He's a nice guy. I like that guy. He's a good kid. Okay, while Bob's doing that, Nick, move on.
Highflow.nl.
Okay.
So yeah, it's incredibly expensive, and plan on finding a friend that knows how to rework that, so you don't have to screw it up. But yeah, I mean there was a ton of things. Not only were the holes not lined up right, but the where the heat sink is, it was hitting on top of the heat sink. So John had to cut that out. And then in order to put any super gun in, we had to route this part out. Yeah, it was pretty bad. Not for 100 and something after shipping.
So, Bob, did you contact them about this, and did they ever offer a retort or any sort of compensation, saying, "Hey, we're sorry about this"?
I tweeted them a bunch of times, and they never responded at all, which made me I just don't even want to waste my time emailing them anymore.
Is that just plexiglass with a silk screen in it?
Is it Lexan with a?
All it is, just plexi with a silk screen in it, and it was Alrithmodor Jacob. I could never say that. Alrithmodor. Sorry, dude. He was the one that looked into plexi for other stuff, and it's not nearly that expensive. In fact, I think you all might probably recognize these. And plexi for that, he got super cheap. Plexi for the DVI one, he got super cheap, and we were tempted to even go back and redo the plexi for the arcade boards just to stick it to them, because I was so disappointed in the quality. And by the way, this isn't a one-off. When I first posted it on Twitter, all frustrated, I assumed all the responses would be like, "Good job, Dick. One bad one, and now you're bad-mouthing them." And it was the opposite. So many comments were like, "Mine too. Oh, yeah, my other board from a different kind was bad too." And there was a lot of people that had the exact same experience across different arcade boards. So I wouldn't buy from them. I didn't like that.
All right, now we can go on to chat questions, if there are any. I don't know if anyone's been paying attention.
Jesus, no, I haven't.
How can I make a Rockman 4 minus infinity with the 8-bitter? There's some kind of SRAM needed. I've got the right donor.
So the only thing that you need to do, first of all, the NES 8-bitter fits seamlessly into the program memory slot. It's a Rockman Infinity is a 1 megabyte game, so the NES 8-bitter is designed to accommodate that. The only thing that you need to do is you need to replace the character ROM on that board that you're going to use with character RAM. So it's just a matter of wiring in the 28-pin character RAM, or the SRAM chip that you have, into the character ROM's position. If there was enough demand for that, I would design what I thought about doing was just giving it away as designing real quick a surface mount SRAM chip that will install the same way as the 8-bitter in place of the DIP package. So you could just decouple the character ROM from the bus by just holding the output enable high on the character ROM, and then you just install this little module that's got a surface mount RAM module on there, and you just install that on the back. But it's so niche, I don't know if that's really necessary to do. The last one I made, Steve has. No, a couple of ones ago, Steve has. I don't make many of them. I don't care about it, really. You guys touch me. Okay, thank you.
Let's see, another Voultar question was, I was wondering what Voultar does for his top loader multi-out panels, since you don't use 3D printed.
Yeah, I don't. Well, at the moment, I don't use 3D printed multi-out panels. What I have is a huge collection of Nintendo 64 and SNES boards that are, for all intents and purposes, destroyed. I don't mean that the plastics are cracked on one side or it's a salvageable system. I never harvest parts from a system that could even be remotely saved. So I have a large cache of totally distressed systems that I pull real connectors from, and I fabricate the back panel to accommodate a real multi-out. But that's going to soon change.
Yeah, I think Greg said he was going to send you something.
Thank you, Greg. I saw that. Yeah, he was going to a test print, I think, of the multi-out panel that he's been working on, which is great because there's not, from what I've gathered, there is not an open source equivalent to a good 3D printable multi-out panel. So I'm really excited that people are working on that so the community can benefit from my body.
Alrighty.
Here's one. Why is a picture of Pat Sajak on here?
I don't know. Next question. Could a Genesis HD Retrovision cable be used as a generic RGB component cable for multi-consoles? I want to be able to take all my signals from an Extron and use one cable to my CRT.
No, because those cables are crap. They're only designed to work with one or two specific systems. It's not a good general purpose thing because it's shit.
Yes, I think that answers that.
Can I answer on behalf of Steve? Well, without knowing the specific environment and each individual signal that's being passed through the switch based on the consoles that you're putting it through, yeah, if you know what you're doing, wire it up, it'll probably work, but they will not support it, and if you blow it out, you kind of...
I would like to say something really short, because in the past, I've gotten one or two emails about this, and it's irritating. It doesn't tick me off, but it's irritating. But there's this wild conspiracy that HD Rectalvision makes these cables console specific so they can maximize their profits, and there's no good rhyme or reason for them to do that. And let me tell you all something. Yes, I've gotten at least 5 emails about, why isn't there just one general purpose device? Is it just so that they can make more money?
The Genesis cable almost is that. That's the whole adapters thing.
But the adapters have stuff inside.
Yeah, exactly. So I was going to get to that. Yeah, all of the adapter, well, not all, but the non-Genesis...
the non-Genesis one.
Have components inside the adapter to adjust the signals that are coming based on measurements from each console. So you could... Anyway, we've had somebody else, I remember, propose this idea, which is basically turning a switcher into, like, the opposite direction and doing that kind of thing for in to one out through our cable. But, yeah, I mean, it's not optimal.
I gotta interrupt. I have some really important news, and this is serious important. But no, let me just say real quick. I understand why people would say that if you didn't know them. But listen, these cables are tailored to the T specific on a console by console corner case basis. So as
I just
easy
don't
as it
get
would
the
be
whole
to do that.
that whole line of thinking, because if that was true, why wouldn't we have just made specific PlayStation cables instead of an adapter?
All of these questions are very easily answered in the Part 2 component video oscilloscope thing that Steve and I did. Which I still haven't fucking edited.
I just wanted to say, listen, this is really important, and then we can get back to questions, but this is mainly for Nick. I know he'll appreciate this. Nick, I just had a Twitter update. My secretary just called me. Yuzo Koshiro now follows me on Twitter, so you can go fuck right off into hell.
No way.
I'm going to go masturbate into my fine recliner, and I'm going to wear some of my nicest linens tonight.
You?
He does.
That was me. I just changed my Twitter name to fuck with you.
I hope you burn in hell, you son of a bitch.
I want to see this. I don't believe it.
Believe it, bitch.
I saw a great question in the chat if we have time for one more.
Yeah,
you got plenty of time.
Can you please explain the difference between UDIN versus CDIN?
I can. Would you like me to?
Yeah.
Okay, so
we linked to the explanation.
So
that's not the point, Steve.
Think of the C. Okay, so think of the C shape. It's like this, right? And think of the U shape. It's more elongated, right? It doesn't curl at the end. That's the difference. C and U. If you turn the
CU, I get it.
If you
rotate P, there's a P involved, right?
If you rotate the C negative 90 degrees, It almost looks like a U, but not quite. But it's close. That's all I want to say. We don't need to answer this, Bob. We've went over 262 and 270 degree connectors 1,000 times.
I was about to say, like, everybody else calls it UNC, and I always call it 270 and 262.
Yeah, see, me and
more
you are the only
sense.
people who do that.
It's like in the all our drawings. It's 262.
Bob, you've got to close the window. Jesus Christ, I don't want to hear freaking the resurgence of,
I can't believe he
Mad
actually
Max
followed
Beyond the
you.
Thunderdome
God
4.
damn it.
Oh, Nick, did you see it?
Yes. Because
Nick,
that
what is
ruined, I was going to have a joke question at the end, which was, we have a question from Yuzo Koshiro who asks, who is Voultar and why does he keep harassing me for his friendship?
And why is he sending nudes?
Well, there's a good answer for that, Nick, but I'm not willing to talk about it right now.
Yeah.
We got plenty of time. We've not answered a lot of questions in the past. I feel like we should spend at least another 10 or 15 minutes.
That's
All right.
cool with
Yeah,
me.
whatever.
What else we got?
Who asked that? Oh, that was Castlemania Ryan. Let's see. I don't know. I don't see any other questions scanning through here.
Well, if there's silence.
There was one from Mike. I lost it.
Oh, while you do that, some guy asks, Voultar, for the Battlefield server replacement, can't you just do a DNS replacement? Why is there so much extra work to modify the EXE to point elsewhere? Well, I guess you could maybe do something on your router to change how one specific DNS resolves, but for just specifically for the master server, but it would make much more sense to handle it in the application and change it in the application than doing any sort of physical hardware change in your network parameters.
Sounds like way more work to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
than just replacing the
well,
characters.
you could, I guess, do it.
You
in
could
your
change
hosts file on if you're running Linux.
You could change where that DNS, like you could change where the original DNS resolves to, so it's translated on the host machine. So 8888 could point to or resolve to like 63.21.72.46.
What if OpenSpy moves?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
It's a bit. It's yeah.
Handle it in the application. Don't make this a physical issue.
The
Like
replacing
from
the
Nick, you're so
DNS or the URL in the application is not the hard part. It's the actual OpenSpy server that the guy is creating all this stuff, this master system emulation. That's where all the work is being handled.
That's right. That's
Okay.
right.
I found the question. Mike Aman, I think is how you pronounce it. I apologize if not. I can't find a suitable replacement power supply for a Panasonic MSX. What do I need to know in order to make one?
Oh God! Hold. You got 2 seconds, Steve? Do you remember this nightmare? Hold on, I'll be right there.
Nick, I think you're really blurry all of a sudden. I don't know if it's just my Skype or. There you go.
I mean, Skype's on a different camera, so I don't even know.
Just a second.
Here's a very quick question and a great one. Where's the freaking HD rectal cables for the Wii?
They are. We just paid for the shipping for them to come on over. So
Today.
Yeah. So they are shipping.
Finally.
Yeah.
Nick, could you possibly say that with any more enthusiasm?
I'll be more enthusiastic when our Amazon is not hijacked by some weird Chinese company. Castlevania Ryan said he's going to help us out by hooking us up with his Amazon guy, since he is a Seattle man.
Does he have a kidney guy too?
Yeah. Gotta have a kidney guy.
So here's the deal. Hold on. I don't know if I've got the cover off of this. Maybe I do. Oh, I do. This is so good. I can show you guys everything. I can show you what it means to be a man.
It'd be way funnier if Zach had like funny looking boxers on now.
So
like
I had
boxers with a picture of Nick's face on them.
So whoever, Mike.
You're gonna have to turn that blur off, my friend.
Okay, so I'm going to turn this blur off. This will take me 2 seconds. I do this too when I have sex with Bob. It's the only way I can manage.
You made him spit it out. That's good.
I have to.
You
I
got
have
a paper towel, Bob.
I have to turn the blur.
That's technology for you. Zach doesn't make me wear a bag anymore. He just blurs my camera.
So I can, let's see, I can't see my camera. Oh yeah, I can. So I have the Sony Hitbit MSX2. And what's remarkable about this thing is it has precisely the same odd barrel connector that you have to deal with. What I did, because I wasn't going to pay $70 for an AC power, for a DC transformer for this thing, it's kind of janky, but I wired in a Pico power supply. And I wired a Pico power supply to deliver the 12 volt, the minus 12 volt for sound, and the 5 volt rails. Now, what's interesting is when I did that, I don't know if this is going to show up, but look, I didn't change the connector. It still has that funky connector that you have on your Panasonic. And I took an eData power supply and I made my own. I forgot where I bought. You can buy these connectors, but I made my own power supply that has the 12 volt rail. Maybe it's just the 12 volt rail and the 5 volt rail. I don't think the minus rail is used for anything. But I had to fabricate and make my own power system for my MSX2 because the power supply was just ridiculously expensive. So that's how I handled power on mine. Just make sure you use a good quality 12 volt power supply because that's going to be the main contributing factor of how well your Pico performs in terms of ripple.
How many amps is that?
This is 2 amps or 3 amps. I think this is 2.5 amps maybe.
Between 2 and 3 amps.
Yeah, between 2 and 3 amps.
So, serious question though. The Pico PSUs. Pico PSU is a term to describe that small thing with the ATX header on it, but there are so many different variations. And Renee helped us at one point out which ones were better based on the pictures, assuming that what you're getting is the same as the picture. But a friend of mine, Beast, had one start smoking on him because he bought one of the cheaper ones, and everything looked like he was buying the good one. It seemed like he was.
Probably
and I
his
have
Amazon
2 here.
listing hijacked.
Yeah, there you go. And how is there any telltale way to know that your Pico PSU isn't a piece of shit? Is it like
I don't know.
Square components on it? I think I have one right here.
I don't know. That's really a Steve question. Really, it's a Renee question, but he's not here.
I don't know. I typically stay away from those completely.
Yeah. Here we go. So the ones with
Oh yes. Very nice. I just want to say something real quick. Uplink Pro, yes, your 3DO RGB board is quite impressive. Bob, I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but
I do. I haven't had time to install it yet, and when I do, I want to make sure to take good pictures and everything. But it looks pretty awesome.
yeah, I've not had a chance to install it, but I've looked at the design and the way you install it. It's quite good. You should be quite proud of yourself. I hope it doesn't suck. I hope to tell you more about it later. But good work, very good work, Uplink. I don't know who you are, but you're a good man with a good body. I'm sure. I don't know. Never seen you, but I'm guessing.
Alrighty.
What were you showing, Bob?
This is the cheap one. This is the cheap ass Pico. As you can tell, I glued it into something just to test real quick and yanked it right back out because I didn't care. As long as it worked for 5 minutes, it served its purpose. The better one that I have is over plugged into my CPS2 HDMI. And the only reason I know it's better is because Renee told me it was. Maybe it's not. But is there a way people could understand and know which of these Picos are better to use and which you should be using?
I don't know. I don't think there is a general answer for that.
Fucking Renee. He's just galloping around on his Mies tonight. Fucking the shirt off in the Canadian tundra.
With his elephant gun.
Right.
It's probably
We need him here.
It's probably bright as like the daytime there right now.
Ugh.
Yeah, they don't
Covered
have
in
sunlight
poutine.
there. I mean, they don't have daylight or night light. nightlight. That doesn't even make sense. Okay, next question.
Cosmic asked, who runs the HD Retrovision Twitter page these days, and why do they retweet everything from Adam? Okay, I think this is in reference to I retweeted an Adam Shenmue tweet, which he is the official spokesperson for Shenmue, so I just thought it was appropriate.
How does that happen?
Another...
You know the truth is I've never watched a full one of his videos, and I've only seen a few seconds of a few, and they make me so angry. And I hoped that when I met him, it was going to be one of those scenarios where it's just like, all right,
be hanging out again at too many games, so...
I can't even do it. Even the Dreamcast, even the one... I got sent a message saying, like, did you see what he said about the DC HDMI? I had to pass it to a friend and be like, hey, did you see what Adam said about, and let him tell me I couldn't.
Bob, I do the exact same thing with your videos. Zach, can you just watch this for me and tell me? Because I just can't do it.
Yeah, I just give feedback to Nick, and he reciprocates. He relays that to you. But no, my problem is I'm sure that all of his content that's not technically based is fine and good.
I don't care about this. Nobody cares about that.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, you
Nobody
don't care.
cares.
You don't care, Nick. You just want to keep controlling the show.
Is Voultar working on an MVS RGB bypass?
Well, it's not so much
Still
an
working.
RGB bypass, but yes, I'm working on a full video replacement.
Is it called the Neo Geo Video X?
That's a very enterprising name. I've never thought of that, but with a name like that, I think I should open up pre-orders. No,
is the resistor that you installed in your C-Sync mod for the PS1 just to make the signal safe for consumer electronics?
Yeah, so there's two elements to that. There's the resistor that just brings the amplitude down so it's safe, and then there's the capacitor that we repurpose that's just for isolation. So, yeah, that's exactly what it's for.
And to help drive the line.
And to help aid in driving the line out. That's right.
When am I going to be able to order HD Retrovision cables directly from your webpage when they're all in stock?
What about Dreamcast cables?
Yeah, hopefully never again. Steve doesn't want to open up the store, and I agree with him. It's much better for us to be focused on development than to be running a store, so...
Clearly, because you guys did such a great job keeping shit in stock all these years.
Yeah.
Jesus, Bob, you're such a bastard. I have to agree. I just want to know, what's the goddamn weight on Dreamcast cables? I want to ask publicly right here.
Right?
Do you know what a cryogenic chamber is? Maybe you should talk to Kevin, and he'll get you set up at that. You know, maybe a Millennium will get you out of there. You can.
No, that's okay. I've seen Demolition Man. I love Stallone naked.
As long as you can get a rat burger, right?
That's right.
Yeah, it's a good burger.
Yeah,
It's a good burger.
Okay, so no Dreamcast. I heard they were canceled. I just want to know if there's any truth to that.
Is there anything that could be done to fix the picture from a 2-chip or 3-chip SNES, whatever you say it? I get this question all the time, and the short answer is no.
No, that's not true. The short answer is there's a way to maybe make a 40% improvement, and I'm working on that right now. And that's no joke.
It's still not going to be close to what a mini would be, right?
It's going to be comparable, but it's not going to be a mini. But you know what? It will be to a point to where, in my opinion, in my video file initiatives, I would be satisfied with it. It's going to look pretty good. It's going to be a big. Hopefully, it'll be an appreciable improvement. It would be a mod worth doing, and that's all I'm going to say.
Easy mod or complicated mod, though?
There's about 3 more steps involved from a normal SNES Mini bypass.
All right, fair enough.
And if you don't want to do that, it's something we want to incorporate ourselves into HDMizer.
Yeah, you gotta have
20.
We all already own a RetroTink 2X, so that's fine.
Yeah, it's got a really nice smoothing feature, actually, which works pretty well with the interlaced content. I was playing with PS2 stuff, and I turned on the smoothing feature, and the shitty bobbing of the OSSC, because I chained it in there, it wasn't that bad. It actually kind of fixed a lot of that I'm going to have a seizure or a migraine by watching the strobing effect of the way its interlacing algorithm works. So, yeah, I like the RetroTink. It works great for classic computers, too.
Here's a question I want to know the answer to as well. Wasn't Voultar going to make an install video on the GBA consolizer?
Guys, and I've tweeted about this a couple of times. I'm going to do that as soon as that kit comes to me. Jason was I guess he's supposed to ship it out at some point. Ideally, I think I was supposed to get those kits. I was supposed to get a kit, according to Bob, before
January.
Yeah, in January, and we're 6 months later.
Right.
But the idea was for me to get a kit before they were ever put up for sale, so I could do a nice, comprehensive video outlining everything. If you guys want me to do that, please badger the shit out of Jason, otherwise known as GameTech US or Buttsex US. Say, get that kit over to Voultar so he can do that. I was trying to schedule that video because it's going to take me some time to make that. I was trying to schedule it so it would be in line with my schedule, but I've not heard anything, and it's a little frustrating because I want to make sure I have time to do that. It's very important. I want to do it for you guys sexually. So maybe, Bob, can you work on that for me as my liaison?
I'm doing it right now. Hold on.
I mean, I'm not bitching about it at all. I'm just saying we need to get that video out there because my schedule is limited, and I know I've gotten 100 emails asking me to please do it. We are talking about you. Get your shit together, you son of a bitch. Oh, yeah. You got to hit send, though, Bob.
Yep.
I don't believe you.
There you go.
Why are there no emojis in there?
Because I'm not a 14-year-old girl. There you go. Send.
The mega video is still a thing, only it's radically evolved since I last talked about it, and it's going to be it will come out eventually. It will come out, and it's going to be free for everybody.
You know what's so funny is in hindsight, that kit that you sent me exposed the thing that led to you figuring out the 2 capacitor thing on the VDP. So it's been a long process, but damn, that's been it's been.
Did we ever talk about that? Did we ever talk about real quick, the capacitor thing?
Could you please, if we have, it's worth repeating because I still get a million questions on it.
Okay, so here's the deal. So like the Genesis, I did some thorough signal analysis on a couple of different VDPs of the Model 1 Genesis specifically. And I found some very telling. I was able to acquire some telling data, and I was able to quantify that data to reproduce certain visual distortions that plague the Genesis. And what I found was, there are a couple of areas that you need to stabilize with some nice decoupling. What is this on the stream? I'm just now seeing this picture, Nick. It's kind of confused me. But basically, to cut it short, I can help you mitigate up to 90% of your gel bar issue by putting 2 decoupling capacitors very close on 2 very specific points on the Genesis VDP. And if you do that, your picture, like I said, will be about 90% gel bar free. I've replicated this on probably a dozen systems. As I understand it, a slew of other people have been able to do this too and have had tremendous success.
Gel bars sound like GMOs. It's like 90% GMO free.
Yeah, it's like, well, there's still that 10%, you son of a bitch, Monsanto.
Frank mentioned.
Wait, hold on. On this same topic, is there anything more we could do to reduce the RAM noise, or are we sure that's just about it at the moment?
Yes, there is something else that we can do, and this is what's going to play into the Sega Mega video. Bob, this is something that I mentioned to you about this Master System the other day.
Yeah, I'll talk to you afterwards about what happened with that, but yeah, we'll get to that. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, thank you for the noise in the background, Bob. Please, just don't even own a microphone, Bob.
Frank mentioned the Hyperkin prototype N64 clone.
I saw Modern Vintage Gamer. He tweeted something out. I meant to read about it, but evidently it's running a derivative of Mugen 64. Well, not Mugen, but what's the emulator that's well known in the N64 community?
It's close enough, I think.
Mupin 64.
Not Mugen. Yeah, Mupin 64. But evidently, it's a very average permutation. It's an average compile of that.
According to LibRetro, like, you can replicate one of the glitches you see in a Hyperkin video if you turn off like most of the high power settings on Mupin, whatever it is, which you would probably have to do in order to get it to run on like an ARM. So that's what seems like is going on here, and of course, LibRetro was
made a little snide remark as to, which I think is warranted, don't get me wrong.
No, Lib Retro made a snide remark. There's
I
no
think
way
it's
that I would believe
justified,
that would happen.
though, because
I think
according
this is
to
more
the
interesting.
license,
Yeah.
I'm taking their word for it, but I guess according to the license, Hyperkin would need to contribute back the code.
So that means they would have to release their source,
Yeah.
right? Their modifications and their alterations.
So we'll see if that happens.
Well, that's not going to happen. Jesus. So, when has Hyperkin ever done the right thing?
0 times. No,
Okay.
I've
I
said
mean,
this
that one
before.
NES controller where if
Yeah.
you buy 10 of them, 8 will probably be okay and 2 will be junk. Does that count?
I have a wired Genesis Hyperkin controller, and I think it's pretty nice, actually. But
I think I have a Scout. It's the SNES Scout. It's a Hyperkin Super Nintendo controller, and it's not bad.
so,
Yeah,
I think
that's the one I'm talking about.
Hyperkin
That's the
does a
one where-
good job at buying good controllers off
From,
of
from the Chinese market, from the Shenzhen market. It's
But that's
changing
the
the stamp
exact
on the
controller
controller.
where you get all these different reviewers that have different opinions. I forgot who it was, but there was one person that bought like 10 of them, and all 10 were kind of a little bit different, which is not what you should get with a somewhat decent plastic mold.
No, that's true. There should be very little variation.
Cool. So, yeah, I take it none of us are going to be getting the Hyperkin 64. I think they're calling it the Ultra 64 or something.
Can I ask you guys a quick question? Maybe you have experience with this or not. And this is also for the chat, too. There are a few Nintendo 64 games that I really, really like. But I really don't think it justifies or merits me hooking up a real physical Nintendo 64 and using my what little precious real estate I have and I/O on my Switcher and all of that. If I just wanted to play Mario 64 and a couple of other games, is Wii Virtual Console or Wii U Virtual Console Mario 64 emulation good enough to where I can have a pretty enjoyable experience, or do I really need to hook up an N64 to just play Mario 64?
It looks good enough, I'll tell you that. But I'm not a big fan of N64, so I wouldn't be the best person so maybe the chat could jump in on that. But it certainly looks good enough. For what it was, a few dollars to play the game on Wii U, I was happy.
Yeah, so I like the Nintendo 64 sorta, but I would only play games like maybe I would play Mario 64, maybe Harvest Moon 64, definitely not Quest 64. But I just don't want to dedicate an entire system and hardware in my setup for a couple of games, and I just wonder, I'm not a big stickler for emulation, but can I get by with a Virtual Console? Will it be okay? I mean, will it be a fun experience? I'm not looking for dead-on accuracy. I just want to know you're wasting your fucking time. Just get out your N64 and play it there. That's what I want to know. Someone tell me in the chat.
That's what I'm going to do. I just bought NBA Hang Time this past weekend.
For what?
For 64.
Oh, you're going to actually hook up a physical Nintendo 64?
I have it hooked up to a CRT.
Oh, okay.
I don't even own one anymore. I gotta be honest. I didn't really like it that much then. I don't really like it that much now. Sorry.
Hey, what do you got? You got Star Fox 64, Zelda, and Super Mario 64. That's pretty much it. Smash sucks.
Blitz.
Oh, Blitz. Oh, sorry. Yeah, the Blitz.
I mean, Sin and Punishment was amazing, but
Ogre
I'd rather
Battle.
play the version that they released on the Wii that was, it's the sequel or something, but yeah.
If
Wasn't
you like
the,
RPGs, Ogre Battle is pretty awesome.
Wasn't there was it Gauntlet Legends? Was there an N64 port of Gauntlet Legends?
Yes.
It was pretty good on the N64. I think I liked it.
Yeah, it's
They
great.
changed it like crazy
Yeah.
from the arcade version.
I think I like the
N64.
N64 version better than the Dreamcast version.
Yeah, they changed a lot to make it so it's
really a
less
different
arcade.
game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's way less arcadey because you couldn't. The only way to get health was to get food in the arcade, and in the N64 one you could buy health.
I don't remember that.
It's very strange.
So, okay, at any rate, any more questions?
I think that's about it.
Yeah, I don't know
Anything-
about you guys, but I had a lot of fun this time.
I had a great time, and this is very shocking because I was getting ready to quit this godforsaken podcast.
Because it was so wonderful just standing there watching you idiots play a game I didn't give a fuck about last time.
Yeah, thanks for moderating, Bob.
Yeah, thanks for really controlling the conversation.
Anytime, guys.
Well, you can play, but I mean,
I'm so bad at it, it would take away from it.
Hey,
You'd rather have me moderating.
I'm glad that we're talking about this. I'm sorry Renee's not here, but he may have an opinion. Maybe next time, do you think, I don't know who all has one. I have a Wii U and a Switch. Should we do maybe Mario Kart 64 or something like that? That's a little less engaging.
I was super disappointed, by the way. I had mentioned this last time, but Mario Maker 2, you cannot do friend co-op.
What?
Oh, yeah.
You can only play with randos, is what Nintendo announced.
I think there's so much backlash on that, Nick. I don't think that's going to stick. I don't think it can stick.
But I'm not buying it until it changes. If it changes,
that would be an
awesome then stream. We will play that. Yeah, that will be an awesome stream.
As somebody said on Twitter about that, if you don't buy it because of that, you're a little entitled prick. You're an entitled prick.
I mean, I never had the first one. I don't really care to make Mario levels on my own, so I will happily be entitled to not buy it. But if they have co-op and the 4 of us, 5 of us, however many can play it, totally in. I'll go to the store right now if it was.
Yeah, he's not buying it out of spite because they didn't include co-op. That's the feature he wants, so he's not going to get it because it doesn't have the feature he wants. That's different.
That's right. That's right.
And agreed about Mario Kart too. I would absolutely enjoy playing that just for fun.
Is it still
just
like full price, or can you get it?
Of course, anything with the word Mario in it is $59.99, and sometimes drops to $54.99.
Unless you buy it for Wii U right now, which it's like.
Oh, we'll have this discussion.
I really want to know.
I never liked the controller. I thought it was uncomfortable, so I used other controllers with it.
That's fair.
And anytime using games like the new Super Mario U, loved that game. But overall, I just it's because you guys probably have you all have PS4s and stuff. Where you're used to spending 4 hours just to start a game.
The one game that I would say that I did experience load times on was Xenoblade Chronicles X, but you could also download, if you have the space, there's some downloads that speed that up, which I never did. I just dealt with it.
I never had a problem with Virtual Wii. I mean, I know there's some video disturbances, but I thought for what it was, the Virtual Wii on the Wii U was fantastic. I never had any problems playing Mario Galaxy 1 or 2 or anything like that in the Virtual Wii mode. I don't know. Did you not like? Do you have problems with Wii mode on the Wii U, Bob?
That the Wii mode annoyed me. Maybe I should take another look at it, and maybe I should just take a look with fresh eyes and stuff. But overall, it was just very underwhelming from day one. Every time, and maybe it was just my personal experience, but day one I got it on a holiday that everybody else got it on, so the online service didn't work. So it took a week before I could even update it and play it. And then all the things going on, occasionally you'd hit a gem, like when it was the M2 releases of Zero Mission and stuff. That was like, holy shit, I'd buy a Wii U just to be able to play that. Because remember, that was way before Extremes, and that was way before Woozle. You couldn't play GBA on a TV and have it look like that. So that alone was worth it for me. But a lot of the other stuff,
I will tell you this. Axiom Verge on it is awesome. The control, most of the time when I played Wii U, I used the Pro Controller, but being able to use the screen controller and have your map, I mean, I feel like...
Yeah,
maybe that's
remarkable.
It feels like not that much, it's just, pressing start or whatever to pull up your map, but do that a million times. I mean, it's just like a glance down at a map. It's so handy. I love it.
Disagree. When I played through Axiom Verge the first time, I ended up ordering one of those from Japan Nintendo Club owner. It was like a SNES controller, but it plugged into the bottom of the Wiimote. That's what I ended up finishing Axiom Verge with. And then on the Switch, I used the 8-bit Do controller, and I liked it better overall.
Bob, if you play... I mean, I'll tell you something. If you played Wind Waker on the Wii U, or you played Twilight Princess on the Wii U, and you were using the gamepad, I don't think you could ever go back to playing either of those games, either on the Wii or the GameCube. Those games alone merit the ownership of a Wii U.
Absolutely, for Wind Waker.
Yeah, well,
You gotta play Wind Waker on.
Yeah, so this one's on me because you guys years ago insisted I play Wind Waker HD on the Wii U, and I committed to doing so and never got around to it. So maybe my interest would be completely renewed when I did that. So my bad on that one.
Yeah, you should be sorry.
All right, let's wrap this
What's a
bad boy
video
up.
game?
It's that thing you play when HD Retrovision cables are in stock.
Yeah, that's right.
Jesus, Bob, take it easy.
Oh, so that's why I never played one.
This godforsaken company will never recover from these blows.
We have one more question. Again from Yuzo Koshiro asking, why do you waste your time with all those other losers?
Well, that's a good question, Yuzo, but I've got to be honest with you. I'm here because these guys need direction. They don't have the weight that I have. No offense, Bob, but they need somebody to kind of guide their cocks, and that's what I'm doing.
Bob has at least five times the weight that you have.
Oh, absolutely.
We're talking about subs, because I was talking about subs.
That's not what we were talking about.
Oh, we were talking about subs, just different kinds of subs.
Yeah. Okay, Jared.
That's not
rough.
nice at all.
That was really bad. I'm sorry.
I make all the fat jokes in the world, but I've always liked people my own age. That's a fucked up joke to me.
Yeah, you never go Jared. That name is cursed, by the way.
Jared or Pro Jared. Whatever happened to Pro Jared? Is he still...
He's gone. He's gone. All right. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Sign up for my live journal. Thanks, Pro Jared.
All right,
awesome. See you guys later.
See you guys. Have a good one. Stick around.
I just can't, man. But what is next, man? Yeah. Let's make us up. Right on, brother. Wow. How exactly do you say it? Do you say it as that, or YZ, or was that Zet, or Zet, Zetty, Zet? I don't know how to say your name. I just call it the Zet whenever that I see it. Yeah. So how do you really say it? I mean, I just really would like to know. I'm just curious and stuff. Yeah, I can't think of anything right now. I'm like,